Hello and welcome to Adventure Time. It's my gimmicky title for game reviews, like Johnny Versus or Angry Review. So there's so many games to look at, some really great ones from 2019, and of course some really great ones coming in 2020. But I wanted to start off with the game that I have been Let's Playing on this channel. I felt it was only appropriate. And if you're thinking, I love you, Colonel Sanders, what are you, fucking crazy? Nope, I think you know exactly what I'm talking about, man. I am dressed for the occasion. I'm talking about Link's Awakening, of course. But I thought, this is a remake, and I spent the time playing it and playing the original simultaneously to get a feel for both experiences. So I thought, maybe I should review both. So, I'll also be reviewing the DX release on the 3DS Virtual Console. I don't have the original Game Boy version. Sorry. Anyway, let's get this show on the road. This is The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening for both the Game Boy Color and Nintendo Switch. So just a heads up, I don't have a 3DS capture card yet, so I'll have to resort to borrowing the Game Boy gameplay for visuals, but I will be mainly showing the Switch version since it is my own gameplay after all. Anyway, so in 1993, the Zelda series made its portable debut on the original Game Boy. It was absolutely successful in bringing the formula of A Link to the Past to the small screen, and as a result, was universally praised. I wholeheartedly agree. Link moves fluidly in all 8 directions, attacks properly with the sword, and retains his versatility with items. The game's world is actually really expansive too. I mean, there's no light world, dark world, but nonetheless, it's very impressive that a world in this scale was done on a Game Boy. And it's not even empty either. No, this game is filled with life, whether it be monsters or villagers. As we get further in, I might as well just start with the game's plot while I'm at it. If you haven't played it yet, I warn you, there will be spoilers ahead. Sometime after A Link to the Past, Link is caught in a violent storm while sailing. I say sometime after A Link to the Past because in 2020 it's not really clear when this takes place. The Hyrule Historia says it follows the Oracle games, but then this gorgeous piece of gold says it takes place before them. Way to throw the fanbase off, Nintendo. Personally, I prefer it be after. Link looks slightly older than he does in those games, and spoilers for the linked ending. He literally leaves on a boat at the end! But ultimately, it doesn't affect either game's plot, so at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. So let's move on. Link's ship gets hit by a lightning bolt, the poor bastard, and he washes up on a beach where he's found by a girl. He wakes up with the best jizz face of all time and is introduced to Marin and her father Terran. Marin informs Link that he's not in Hyrule anymore, but in Koholint Island. That's right, no Hyrule and no Zelda. Link's Awakening is The Legend of Zelda in name only. Terran gives Link his shield before he heads off to find his sword on the beach. As he does, an owl approaches him and tells him that the only way to escape the island is to wake the Windfish, who is sleeping in the giant egg at the top of the mountain. Thus, Link sets off to find the 8 instruments that can achieve the task. I guess you can call this The Legend of Zelda The Windfish's Awakening, am I right? Along the way, Link is constantly faced with numerous monsters trying to impede his progress, including Shy Guys, Goombas, Cheep Cheeps, Bloopers, Kirby? What kind of island is this? Well, right before the 6th dungeon, it's revealed that Koholint Island is really just a figment of the Windfish's dream, and once it's woken up, the island and everything in it will disappear. Wow. That's dark. I mean, the game does actually build up to this revelation quite well. All the monsters Link faces slowly reveal that they're just fighting for their own existence. It's quite sad, actually. That also means that all those characters he bonds with will go too, including Marin. Man, that is rough. Oh well. Don't get me wrong, that's not how I feel, but it might as well be how Link feels. He seems to just not really give a damn about anything. I think at least a cutscene of him thinking about it would have been fine, although there's hardly any cutscenes anyway. There are 2 very short but sweet cutscenes that sort of build up Link's relationship with Marin, but that's about it. I guess you could just say it's simply a Game Boy game after all, so it gets a slight pass. Anyway, Link finds all the instruments in the end, even saving Marin one last time before going to finally wake the Windfish. And it happens. Koholint Island disappears along with everything in it, leaving Link stranded at sea. Wait, did I die in this playthrough? Marin! You've achieved your lifelong dream of being a seagull! Overall, Link's Awakening's plot was pretty extraordinary for something like the Game Boy. Sure, it's tame for something like the Switch, but either way it's a great story even when compared to the rest. It's lighthearted, but carries this darkness hidden as you go along. I think its overall plot is all I could ask for in a portable Zelda game, and its ending really stands out among the other games in the series with its bittersweetness. And yes, the windfish totally leaves Link stranded in the ocean. You jerk! But that's just the story. The gameplay is where we must focus the most. As I said before, the game plays like A Link to the Past, but in 8-bit. Link moves in all 8 directions very smoothly. The 3DS circle pad makes it feel even smoother, but the D-pad, which is what the Game Boy had, feels just fine. Link is armed with many traditional items, including his sword and shield, along with a few new ones. Switching items requires you to pause the game and then placing them in either the A or B item slot. Pretty standard stuff, right?
Wrong!
Remember when I said Link's Awakening does a nearly flawless execution of A Link to the Past formula? Well, here's the main flaw in my opinion. Item switching in this game is a massive pace breaker. It might not even seem that bad at first, and it isn't, but as you progress further and gain more items, you'll start to notice. And it's not only the miscellaneous items you have to switch between, but your sword and shield as well. So it's more constant than you think. Now you can't really fault the game for this, it has everything to do with the Game Boy and Game Boy Color's designs. There isn't really much you could do with 2 buttons, but it can get mildly irritating when in a dangerous situation like a boss fight. Doubly so when you're playing on something with a lot more buttons. With that, let's switch to the Nintendo Switch remake. If the Game Boy versions are A Link to the Past, this one is A Link Between Worlds. Link moves smoothly with the control stick, and with many more buttons, everything has been streamlined. Now, both the sword and shield have their dedicated buttons, as well as a few other items that didn't particularly need to take up an item slot. Like before, you have your 2 item slots using 2 dedicated buttons. You'll still have to pause and switch every now and then, but it's less tedious since not every item takes up a slot, which is a massive improvement. Again, it's an understandable limitation of the Game Boy, so no hate. Continuing with the formula of A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening's objective is to find all 8 instruments of the Siren in 8 dungeons across Koholint Island. There's no world shifting as I mentioned, but the island is pretty expansive with a couple different environments like Martha's Bay and Telltale Heights. Although not too big, fast travel is always nice to have. All you need to do is find one of these portals and BAM! You land right at another one. This is further improved on the Switch with even more fast travel points on the map. And then, by playing Monbo's Mambo on the Ocarina, you've got yourself a mobile fast travel station. If only the other songs were as useful. Gotta love that Ocarina though. I think it's pretty bizarre that you find this in the dream, and then it somehow appears in your pocket like the fucking Sorcerer's Stone. Throughout the game, you'll travel all over the island, not just conquering dungeons, but helping out the denizens of Koholint as well. From the start, you'll be able to begin a side quest that's needed for progression at some points, so I guess it's not even really a side quest. In said quest, you simply need to trade one item that someone needs for another item that someone else happens to need. How convenient. Oh, you need a stick? Well, it just so happens that I got this stick from a monkey by the castle, so go nuts, bro. Yeah, you better run, you Super Mario looking
Motherfucker!
No, I don't hate this quest, I just think it's funny. To me, the only real side quest involves the collectibles. There's this trendy game and fishing, they'll speak for themselves. But man, am I just haunted by fishing games. Anyway, as usual, you have your heart pieces to increase your health, and they're pretty well placed. But then, there's the seashells, which there are more of, but they're actually really easy to find. They're mainly hidden in pretty obvious locations, and eventually after finding enough, you'll get a sensor which will sound off when one is close by. And if those aren't good enough for you, I got you covered here on YouTube. I like these because they not only give you something to do aside from the main quest, they also serve to upgrade Link as well. Collecting enough seashells and going to the Seashell Mansion will unlock a few different rewards, including the aforementioned seashell sensor and an upgraded sword, which is much better. Speaking of upgrades, there is a huge one in particular that I have to mention. With the release of Link's Awakening DX on the Game Boy Color, the game included an exclusive color dungeon just to take advantage of the whole new color aspect. Upon completing the dungeon and its many colorful puzzles, you are rewarded with a choice. Red mail to increase your offense, or blue mail to increase your defense. You know me, I've always been a blue guy. So not only do you get an extra dungeon to explore, but you get a permanent upgrade to yourself. That is awesome. Of course, this had to be included with the Switch version too, because duh, but there is still exclusive content on each. Exclusive to the Game Boy versions is a photo side quest, if you want to call it that. The idea is kind of like the photographer showing up in Earthbound to take pictures of you. You just go to specific spots on the island and there you go. While it's nice to see Link actually show some personality, God forbid, I don't really care for these. It's just a distraction, nothing more. On the other hand, the Switch introduced what I'd like to call Super Zelda Maker. Okay, no, it's not nearly on the same level. You'd probably need to make a full game for it if that was the case, but as a side mode, I think it's a nice taste of what could be. In place of the photography building, you'll find Dampé's house, where he introduces you to chamber dungeons. The idea is to take rooms of all the game's dungeons and arrange them to make a sort of custom dungeon. At first, I was a tad confused on how it worked, but it was actually pretty simple to understand at the end of the day. Each room is categorized by the start, the boss, and how many exits the room has. Right below the number of exits, the rooms are also categorized by the directions the exits go, so it's easier to figure out which rooms will connect with one another. Each room also shows if they have a locked door or a chest contained within, so they can be placed as necessary. Really, the whole concept comes down to arranging the rooms like puzzle pieces to get more or less a different result. It's nothing too intricate, you don't place anything in chest or pick which key unlocks which door. It's very simple. Unlocking more rooms to use, in fact, just amounts to completing challenges and another set of collectibles. You can even earn the other collectibles by completing said challenges. Haha! Finally! The last seashell that eluded me. I wonder what you get. Oh goody. Like I said, it's a nice taste of what could be. If this was a full game in of itself, it would need serious work, but as a minigame, it's perfectly acceptable. Back to the regular dungeons, I have to say these are definitely some of the best in Zelda dungeon design. Each can be a bit brain taxing, but super rewarding in the end. Most of them make great use of their specific item, like Dungeon 4 with the flippers. Seriously, I barely dipped my foot in. They also make great use of previous dungeons items, like the hook shot in the last few dungeons, or combining the Rock's Feather with the Pegasus boots to do a long jump. Pretty creative. One of the most infamous dungeons in the Zelda series happens to be Dungeon 7 in this game, Eagle's Tower. If you saw episode 18 of my playthrough, you'll know it's quite the lengthy dungeon. Not only that, but with multiple floors and switches, it can be an absolute chore to go through. I can understand where people come from here, but I personally enjoyed this one with its main puzzle focusing on its verticality, usage of the powerful bracelet to destroy pillars, and careful placement of switches to access areas. My least favorite aspect about it had to be its poor usage of its item, the Mirror Shield, which only really takes precedence during the boss fight, but not to solve any puzzles. On the topic of boss fights, I do like the bosses in this game. Sure, there were many that we've seen before in other games, but I think that's okay for the first portable Zelda. Whether it's an angler, an eagle, a fireball, or a fucking face, the fights are genuinely fun and a bit challenging. The mini-bosses steal the show at times. Honestly, the Stalfos in Dungeon 5 has you chase him around the dungeon and fight him 4 times just to get the hookshot. Really makes you work for it. I love it. I'm not gonna lie here though, this game can be somewhat tough. A lot of the things hit like a tank, especially towards the beginning when you barely have any hearts. This is mostly the case with the original. There can be some bullshit every now and then. I didn't die once on the Switch, but on the Game Boy... The Switch version was definitely made to be easier, but that could just be normal mode. I thought Hero mode was a New Game Plus, like in A Link Between Worlds, but it turns out it's just a harder difficulty. I'll look into doing a Hero playthrough in the near future, don't worry. I'll make it short and sweet with the graphics. On the Game Boy, you had 8-bit graphics on a puke green screen. Then the DX remake added color to those 8-bit graphics. There isn't a whole lot that could be said with graphics like these, but definitely the game pushed the boundaries of those limitations. Every single sprite in this game looks incredible, color or no color. I don't believe there was really any part that looked bad to me. I love those Game Boy graphics for what they are. Now the Switch, the minute I popped this in and started playing this, I was greeted with the beautifully anime-inspired intro that sets a new and far bleaker tone than it could have had in the original. And you would think, wow, is the whole game like this? Well, no, look at the cover, stupid. It just shows that more work and love was put into making this. Just take a look at the ending. The actual game itself looks so beautiful too with its diorama art style. I remember looking at Link and thinking, he looks so cute and pudgy, which made sense. How do you translate this to 3D? And then I looked at this and thought, yeah, that's how you do it. The overworld and dungeons are a far cry from the 8-bit days. Everything is a lot more lively and atmospheric. Places like Dungeon 4, Dungeon 8, and the Yarna Desert are so vibrant and colorful, and that's not even mentioning the weather effects in the desert too. The 8-bit graphics are always a joy to see, while the 3D graphics bring them to life flawlessly. Much praise to the artists on both. But it isn't just the graphics that define a game's beauty. That privilege goes to the sound design too. Now, I'm sure you've noticed that all the music in this review were all covers and remixes. If you haven't, go back and have a listen. Or, just look up. As much as I love Nintendo, it's no secret that fair use isn't exactly in their vocabulary. It's okay though, I can adapt. I have had my run-ins with them in the past, so here we are. If you want to see what I'm talking about here, I suggest giving the official tracks a listen afterwards. Anyway, we're all familiar with 8-bit sounds and how they are. They can either be truly amazing, or bleh, with few in between. Link's Awakening has that Zelda charm. It has its own variant of the overworld theme, which for me never gets tiring, and the Ballad of the Windfish is one of the best Zelda melodies. While I do feel that way, I honestly don't enjoy this game's soundtrack as much as the others. It's not the 8-bit part, it's just that there aren't as many songs that stand out to me here, like in, say, A Link to the Past, but that's not to say it's a bad soundtrack. It's a great soundtrack, and one of the best soundtracks. Now the Switch... the remake was a godsend for every single track in the game. I mean, really, all of it.
All of it.
Just makes my ears melt. When I said it was more lively and atmospheric, the sound design definitely made that possible. Stuff like the overworld theme, the Ballad of the Windfish, even Dungeon 3 and 4 receive a massive boost in life, for example. Now, does this change my feelings of the soundtrack compared to the others? Difficult to say. A massive improvement for sure. How it ranks with others now? Probably for another video? Another time? Maybe? What I can say is, I love this soundtrack, especially my favorite track among both versions, Telltale Heights. And Smash 2. That track just kicks ass. And that does it for my review of Link's Awakening on both the Game Boy Color and Switch. Now, at first I was thinking that I should probably give this a score, but then I realized it wasn't really necessary. Like with Some Call Me Johnny, I think that the review should really speak for itself. I made a case that this game is truly amazing and is a must-play. I mean, then again, this is a Legend of Zelda game, and when are they not, right?
Gee, it sure is boring around here.
Okay, you got me there. Now, before you ask me which is the definitive version, I think it's an obvious answer already. It's the Switch version. But I don't recommend that you play it alone. I recommend that you play both to get the experiences that come with playing the original, and of course comes with playing a remake. I think that's something that you really should do with every single game that has a remake. You should always try out the original and the remake after, or both at the same time like I did. Yep, take that from me. I played the Switch version while I was at home and the DX version while on the go. And yeah, I'm happy with the experiences I had from both, and hopefully you will too. So yes, I know. Here at the end, the lighting is different from earlier. I was trying to use the natural day lighting, but then it got too dark, and I was just like, you know what, let me use the lights, experiment a little. This is the first Adventure Time review, so we'll see what works. If I'm just gonna go with the lighting in my room here, or the outside light, which means that I would have to film earlier in the day, of course. But anyway, yeah, it's just that. It's the first Adventure Time review, so We'll have to see what I'm gonna do next. I don't know. Could be I Love You, Colonel Sanders. Could be another game. We'll have to see. For now, I am the Super Adventurer. Thank you for watching. Have a good day, and I'll see you next video.
Down with Zelda from the very start. I got the heart, it's Mars to play the part. Down with Zelda. Creeping through with an overhead view, cause a man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. So I stay on track, collect the facts, never cut the slack, and I always watch my back for jacks. Down with Zelda, yeah. Strong I stand, I'm the man with the plan, cause the power's in my head and the power's in my hand. Down with